Am I audible now? क्या आप लोगों को मैं सुनाई दे पा रही हूँ? यस, ओके, चलिए, वेरी मच ऑडिबल। आई थिंक अब हम लोग बिल्कुल एक दूसरे को अच्छे से सुन सकते हैं। सो अ वेरी वार्म वेलकम टू द क्लास गाइज, आई होप यू गाइज आर डूइंग वेल। ओके, सॉरी, आई जस्ट चेंज द स्लाइड। ये हिंदी में आ गया यहाँ पे। ओके, so a very warm welcome. Let me just check if everything is all right, and then we will begin with our lecture. Very much audible. I think अब हम लोग बिल्कुल एक दूसरे को अच्छे से सुन सकते हैं. So a very warm. All right, a very good morning class. I hope you guys are doing absolutely fine and there's nothing to be worried about. Okay, so today we will be continuing with our discussion on foreign travelers that have come to India, have stayed in India, and have written about India. And I was also telling you that how good these writers are from a historical point of view because they act as a major source of history for us, right? But I also warned you that it's not always that all the writers will be good or all the writers will give you an unbiased viewpoint, right? And Francois Bernier actually falls in that category where he has given us a very biased viewpoint. And if we are to believe him, there's nothing good in India. There is no private property ownership. The crown is the worst. They're despot rulers. So if we are to believe him, that's exactly what is happening. Okay, but all right, let's just talk about. So here we will be focusing on Francois Bernier today. Just a second, let me take out my pen. So here we'll be focusing on Francois Bernier today. So what did I tell you about Francois Bernier yesterday? That he was a Frenchman. Fine. He had come to the Mughal Empire. He stayed in the Mughal Empire for almost 12 years. He was a physician for Dara Shikoh, right? What was he? He was a physician for Dara Shikoh and he worked with Dara Shikoh there. Fine. That's all that I have told you. Okay. So, and then what else did I tell you? That he was a physician for Dara Shikoh. He stayed here for 12 years and also that he also worked as a scientist for with Danishmand Khan. And most importantly, he was a perfect example of a Renaissance man, right? Because he was a doctor, a political philosopher and a historian. All this I have already told you, and then I told you that how his writings were majorly as letters, right? It was letters written to the king, it was letters written to the it was letters written to the king, it was letters written to the people, and particularly it was to be read by the officials and the ministers there. And his work was actually quite famous. They've been reprinted quite a few times in different languages. All this I have already told you. So we have basic information about Bernier, and now we will be moving on to see what all does he have to say about India. Okay, what are his viewpoints, what all does he have to say about India, all that we are going to be focusing on. Okay, so let's try to understand that. The live chat is open, guys. If you have ever any doubts, you can always just put your question in there. Chaliye. So now let's just try to understand a little bit of concept here. We're trying to understand the question of land ownership. Okay. Now, what do you mean by this? What do you mean by the question of land ownership? Now, land ownership here basically means private property ownership. What does it mean? Let me just write it down for you. Okay. It means what? It means private property ownership. Okay, so that's what he is talking about. He's talking about private property ownership. Now, according to him, one fundamental difference that was there between Mughal India and Europe was that in Mughal India there is absence of private property ownership. Okay, now I'm sure you are going to laugh at this perspective that in India there would be lack of private property ownership. I think in India is like the head of private property ownership. We love to have properties, don't you think? So that is what he's saying, that the major difference between India and Mughal India and Europe is that this lack of private property ownership. Fine. Now, what his viewpoint is, now what he thought is that all the land is being owned by the crown, or all the land is being owned by the Mughal Empire, and they are the ones who distributed all the empire. Sorry, they are the ones who distributed all the land amongst its nobles, amongst the people, and obviously this would have a disastrous consequence in the economy and society. How? Let's discuss that. How would it have a disastrous impact on the economy? So let's discuss this point, that why would it have a disastrous impact on the economy and society. Now tell me guys, when you have a rented place, do you invest as much as you would invest in your own house? Obviously not, right? We don't invest that much of anything in our rented house. We don't buy a lot of things because we know that we might have to leave this place someday. We don't invest in it a lot. We don't get it painted, or we don't get it, renovated and things. We don't do that, right? हम लोग ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं करते हैं, है कि नहीं? क्यों नहीं करते हैं? Because we know that someday we will have to leave. So don't you think, so if your land, or particularly your agricultural land, is a part of crown ownership and not your own ownership, do you think you will be contributing as much to the land? Do you think you will invest in that land to increase the productivity, or do you think you would want to invest in that land at all? You will feel ki, okay, whatever I'm getting from this land, I'm getting. Next, if maybe I can move on to a better land at a better price, isn't it? So there will be lack of investment. Fine. So when there's lack of investment, okay, so there would be lack of investment. Now, where is this lack of investment happening? This lack of investment is happening where? It is happening in, tell me. So this lack of investment is happening in the land. Okay, we're not talking about a house, we're talking about a land. And land would need investment, because otherwise there would be no agricultural productivity at all. So that is why it will have a disastrous consequence for the economy, because if the land is not productive, what are you producing? If you're not producing anything, what are you selling? If you're not selling anything, obviously the economy is in a doldrums, right? Now, why do you think Bernier has this perspective? This Bernier has this perspective because, and this perception is not just unique to him, it is mostly there with all the travelers. Now, he has this perspective because in Mughal India, the tax which was collected was quite high. Okay, it was high from Bernier's perspective, it was high from the European travelers' perspective, not for us as much, because we were able to pay that much of taxes. Our productivity was so much that we were able to pay that much of taxes, right? So that's what they're talking about, that the taxes were so high that maybe Bernier thought that this could not be the taxes, this was the rent which was being paid. Rent in the sense, I am leasing out my land to you and you're paying what? You're paying the rent for it, okay? So let me know if you have any doubts still here. If there's anything you don't understand, you can always put it in the live chat and we will take it up from there. Any doubts that you might have, you can put in the live chat. Okay, let's move ahead. Now, so according to, now what are the consequences of having a, crown ownership? So according to that, according to him, Bernier argued that if you have crown ownership of land, obviously this land could not be inherited, है ना? You could not pass this land on to your sons or to your grandparents or to your grandchildren or to your children, right? Okay. And as I told you, so because of that, there will be no long-term investment in the productivity of the land. And when there's no long-term investment, obviously the productivity of the land is going to decline, don't you think? Okay. So the absence of private property in land had therefore prevented the emergence of a class of improving landlords. What do you mean by this? What do you mean by improving landlords? Let's pay attention to this point. This is actually a very important point, guys, because this you can get as a part of your MCQ. You can give you this line and ask you various questions regarding it. Okay. So what are they saying here? They are saying that absence of private property, fine, will result in the emergence of prevented the emergence of a class of improving landlords. What do you mean by improving landlords? Improving landlords are those landlords who have their own lands, fine, and they are concerned with improving the productivity of their land. Okay, they want to improve the productivity of their land, and hence they do a lot of investments in their land. ओके वो लोग क्या करते हैं, वो लोग अपने लैंड पे बहुत सारा इन्वेस्टमेंट करते हैं, ठीक है. दे डू अ लॉट ऑफ इन्वेस्टमेंट इन देयर लैंड विच लीड्स टू द प्रोडक्टिविटी इम्प्रूविंग ऑफ द लैंड. नाउ सिंस द लैंड डज नॉट बिलोंग, दिस इज अकॉर्डिंग टू बर्नियर, गाइस, फाइन, this is not the reality, this is according to Bernier. But since the land does not belong to the person, it belongs to the king or to whoever is in authority, there would be no long-term investment in it, because obviously you know that one day this land is going to be taken away from me. Okay? So don't you think it would result in ruination of agriculture? Agriculture is going to be absolutely ruined. Fine. There would be excessive oppression of the peasantry and continuous decline in the standards of living of the section of the society. Why? Because they do not have their own ownership of land, as in they don't have any security. Today we buy land or houses or any property. Why? Because it guarantees some kind of security in the future, but that kind of security could not be had with the peasants who were living in the rural areas. Okay. So I'll just brief it up for you. Let me just draw a brief for you. So what is the impact of lack of private property ownership? Okay, could not be inherited, first of all, that. Fine, first of all, that it could not be inherited. Okay, secondly, what is there? If it could not be inherited, what else could be there? Fine, there would be no long-term investment. All right, no long-term investment. Then what else? No improving landlords. What else? Then there would be decline in agriculture. Okay. All right. So let me know if you have doubts still here. If there's anything that you have not understood. The live chat is open. If you have any doubts, any difficulties, you can let me know. These are the repercussions according to Bernier of not having private property. But that's not the reality, guys. Okay, the reality is quite different. We do have a lot of private property. I'll be telling you about that also, but let's just focus on Bernier's perspective for a second, because see, as I told you, we have to be very careful. It's not that they always present an unbiased viewpoint. You can see here how biased his viewpoint is, right? He's always trying to compare the East and the West. He's trying to show that there is no private property ownership in India, and all of these things. Any doubts, any difficulty, you can let me know. Okay, let's move ahead now. So this is how Bernier has described the Mughal Empire. And remember, this is the Mughal Empire he has spent 12 years in. And why am I am asking you to be careful when you are reading the travelogues of these travelers, is that they have spent 12 years in the Mughal Empire. They have worked with Dara Shikoh, but still they have, this is the viewpoint that they have. Okay. And this is after living in the Mughal Empire. Fine. So he has described Mughal Empire as the king was the king of beggars, all right? So the common people has been called as what? The common people has been called as beggars and barbarians. Now barbarians is obviously a term which the Europeans came up with, and anyone who was not fit, who was not fitting their method or their aspect of civilization was known as a barbarian. Okay? Then the towns and the cities of the Mughal Empire was ruined, okay, and was contaminated with ill air. What do you mean by that? The air, or there is so much pollution, or basically what he's saying is that the environment of the Mughal towns is not as good, okay, how good it should be. The environment of the Mughal town is not as good as it should be. That's what he's saying. Fine. And then the field is overspread with bushes. So basically our field is overspread with bushes, in the sense nothing is growing, right? Bushes is what? Bushes is like weed. ठीक है, इसका कोई काम नहीं है. So bushes, it is spread with overspread with bushes, nothing is growing, and it is full of pestilential marshes. What do you mean by that? I don't know if you've seen moss देखा होगा आपने, उसको काई कहते हैं हिंदी में. That's what he's saying, that is full of that. And Mauritius is basically a place where nothing grows. So our land, according to him, is not productive at all. This is the same land on which we are growing 50 varieties of rice alone. Fine. That land, he is saying that it is full of Mauritius. It is a land which is infertile, on which nothing can grow, which is full of bushes. Okay. So I hope you can imagine, I hope you can understand why I'm always telling you that you have to be careful with your foreign travelers. Okay? Now, but and according to him, the reason for all of these negative things is that there is no private property ownership. Now let's try to understand the reality of the situation. Fine. So none of the Mughal documents, and we should not just be talking about the Mughal documents, guys. Let's talk about the other documents. So we have Rajput documents, we have other archival records, we have local documents. None of the documents say that the king is the sole owner of the land. Never has it been said anything like at all. Fine. First of all, king is never considered as the sole owner of the land. Okay. Abul Fazl has described the land revenue. See, the revenue is collected not on the land, that okay, this is the area of the land, so this is the amount of revenue that will be collected. Revenue is always collected on the productivity of the land. So suppose if your land is around 10 acres and your productivity is around 5 quintals, your tax would be on that 5 quintals and not on the 10 acres. Fine. So he has described land revenue, and by land revenue we do not mean here the revenue of the land. It is the revenue of the amount of crops that you have produced. It is described as remuneration of the sovereignty. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by remuneration of the sovereignty? So remuneration basically means salary. Okay. So what is it? It is the salary of the sovereignty, means the king or the official or the government. Fine. So today, nowadays also, what if we have to simplify the transaction between us and the government? What is the transaction like? It is a service. Government is a service provider. We pay taxes to the government, and they provide us services in return. Roads would be good. There would be doctors. There would be government hospitals, government schools, government colleges. That's the kind of services they provide us, right? So that's exactly what Abul Fazl is saying, that it is a remuneration for the sovereignty, means it is a salary for the king, okay? A claim that the ruler makes on his subject for the protection that he is providing. Okay, so it is a form of tax. It is not a rent. It is not a rent on the land he owned. No, not at all. He is taking money in lieu for the services that he is providing to the people. That is it. Fine. Now, so as I told you, it is possible that the Europeans regarded this as a rent, because for them, it might have been because the land revenue was actually quite high. Okay, the land revenue was actually quite high, so maybe that is why they considered it as a rent. Okay, so this was all of this earlier that we studied from point 1 onwards. Point 1 के पीछे के जितने भी हैं, this was all Bernier's perspective, and this is the actual reality, which says that there was private property ownership, and there was no rent structure. Revenue was collected not on the land but on the productivity of the land. Okay, now let me know if you have any doubts still here. Let me know if you have any doubts, guys. If there's anything you have not understood, the live chat is open. I am looking at it right now. If there's anything you don't understand. Chali. Alright, let's move ahead and let's talk about the Western theories. What do you mean by this? What do you mean by the Western theories? So what I'm trying to tell you here is that whatever Bernier came up with, whatever viewpoints that Bernier had, all these viewpoints were read by the Europeans, right? And because they were read by the Europeans came up with a lot of theories for India. All right. So we have theories like Oriental despotism, or we have theories like Asiatic mode of production. All of these theories. So the people in Europe came up with theories regarding India on the basis of whatever they had read in Bernier's account. Okay. So first of all, we have this theory of Oriental despotism. Let me explain. Orient means what? Orient means east. Fine. So Orient means east. So east is signifying Asia. East क्या signify कर रहा है? Asia is being signified. So Asia is signifying east. Fine. Okay. Now according to Oriental, despotism means an absolute ruler who has an absolute control over his peasants or over his people, not peasants. Whatever he say is the rule of the law. जो उसने कह दिया वो पत्थर की लकीर है, ठीक है? So he has absolute authority over his subjects, fine. And as a result, his subjects were kept in subjugation, poverty, and since all the land belonged to the king, private property was non-existent. So you can see, आपको इसमें से you can smell Francois Bernier here, right? है ना? So according to this view, everybody except the kings and the nobles barely managed to survive. Like we were barely managing to survive because the king had absolute control over us. He decided whatever he wanted to do with us. And since there was no private property ownership, we did not have any other ways of making money but or to depend on the king. So this was your Oriental despotism. Then Karl Marx came up with the theory of Asiatic mode of production. Okay. Now, what is this Asiatic mode of production? According to him, now before colonialism, please pay attention to this word. Before colonialism, surplus was appropriated by the state. Let's try to understand what they're trying to say here. I'll explain you your normal situation, and I'll explain you the situation of Karl Marx. So let's try to understand a normal situation here. First of all. So suppose I have produced 10 quintals of wheat, okay? 10 quintals of wheat I've produced, and okay, so total productivity is how much? Total productivity is 10 quintals, fine. I only need, for my own personal usage, okay, I only need maybe suppose around 5 quintals of rice, okay, quintals of wheat. What is the surplus amount left here? Surplus amount is 5 quintals, alright. I will be selling this 5 quintal, okay. And suppose I sell this 5 quintal for 2000 rupees. So this 2000 rupees, so according in a normal situation, the government will tax me on this 2000 rupees, right? The government might take away 500, 200, 300, whatever amount. The government is going to tax me on this income, right? On this 2000 rupees. That is the normal situation. Fine. Let us try to understand the situation according to Karl Marx. Okay? Marx के according क्या situation रही होगी? So Marx is saying that suppose you have made a total of, again, 10 quintals. Okay? Then for personal usage, you only need what? You only need suppose 5 quintals. Now whatever is left, what is the surplus amount? The surplus amount is 5 quintal. Okay. Now this entire 5 quintal will be taken by the king or will be taken by the crown. So now don't you think this will have a huge repercussion on the people? Because if they don't have surplus, what will they sell? And if they don't sell, how are they going to reinvest in their land? Hai na? Because 5 quintal is for their own personal usage that they need. Rest is the extra money, extra amount that they have, that they will be selling that amount. Here what is happening? The government is only taking suppose 500 rupees. Right? The government is suppose only taking 500 rupees. They have 1500 rupees extra which they can, either invest in their land, they can keep it for themselves. This is their earning. For what? Okay. Here there is no earning because the government is taking away the entire surplus amount. Whatever the surplus is, the government is taking that away. Okay. So that's what they're saying, that everything was being appropriated, everything was taken away by the state. Okay. So obviously this would mean what? This would mean that there was, again, the people will be ruined. There will be a lot of poverty. People will have to face a lot of poverty. And this led to the emergence of a society that was composed of a large number of autonomous egalitarian village communities. Okay, so because the king did not really have a relationship with the people, the king was not really concerned with the administration. All he was concerned about was what? All he was concerned about was his surplus. So when the king would get his surplus, there will be no more transaction between the king and the people, and hence it resulted in the formation of egalitarian village communities who would be governing themselves. They would be autonomous body who would be governing themselves, and as long as the king got his surplus amount, the king was not really concerned with these societies. Okay, so what they're trying to say is that the king is only there to collect taxes, like a bully who's there only there to collect money, and then once the money is collected, the rest you can do whatever you want. Fine. The king is not supervising anything. That's what Karl Marx wants to tell us. Okay. All right. Let me know if you have any doubts still here. Any doubts, anything that you might not have understood? Sure. All right. So, Bernier's perspective, whatever Bernier has taught us, whatever Bernier has given us information, he is, because of him, you can see a lot of different kinds of, Western theories coming up. Okay. Now, the actual reality was something else completely. Fine. So let's focus on the actual reality of what it actually was. What was the situation like? Fine. So that's what we will be focusing on now. Just take a look at all the points once. Just take a look at whatever you have done till now. If there's any difficulty, you can let me know. All right. Now, we will move on to the last topic of today's discussion, and now we will see the actual reality. So Bernie has been going on and on and on and on about a lot of things. He's been going on that we don't have money, we don't have private property, we don't have this, we don't have that. Let us see what actual was the reality. Fine. See, even Bernier could not hide certain things, even if he wanted to. Okay. So Bernier has been going on and on about telling us, that there was this tyrannical society. The tyrannical society was there. There was an absolute ruler who would do whatever he pleased. We had to do whatever he said. Fine. Now, he also said that the artisans felt no incentive. They did not want to improve upon their manufactures, since whatever the surplus is, please refer to Karl Marx theory, whatever the surplus is would be taken away by the king. fine. But even he has not been able to shy away from the reality. At the same time, he mentions that vast quantities of precious metals was actually flowing into India. All right, huge quantities of gold and silver. And where is this huge quantity of gold and silver coming from? This huge quantity of gold and silver is coming from where? Is obviously coming from the rest of the world, because we had trade relations with almost all of rest of the world. We had trade relations with Europe, we had trade relations with China, the Western Asia. So we were sending all of those goods. Remember, yesterday only I told you about Ibn Battuta. I was telling you that we had trade relations with Southeast Asia and West Asia, and we were selling so many of our products, right? In fact, to Europe also we were sending a lot of things. We were sending, I think, we were sending tea also there. We were sending all kind of spices. Vasco da Gama had come all the way to India to for spices, isn't it? So yes, even Bernier had to agree that all of the gold and silver of the world was actually coming to India, right? You know? And he also noticed the existence of prosperous merchant communities who were known as we have already talked about them, who were known as your Sethis, Satvahas. They're known as your Shrenis and guilds. So these prosperous merchant communities would not have existed if the society was so tyrannical, or if there was no private property ownership, or if there was no incentive. Why would they have, why would they have agreed, or why would they have continue to live on, isn't it? So even Bernier could not shy away from the actual reality. Let's move ahead. So in fact, so now let us take a look at the actual reality. So what they're telling us is that even the 15% of population was living in towns. Okay, how many? 15% of the population was living in town, and this is much more, the proportion is much more higher as compared to Western Europe at the same time. Fine. So the Bernier has described Mughal towns as being camp towns, means it was completely dependent on the king. So wherever the king lived, people would be throbbing to that place, and as soon as the king moved away, the entire economy of the place would be gone. Fine. But obviously that was not the case, isn't it? We have a lot of people living in different parts of the world, not different parts of India, contributing to different aspects. Some is engaged in long distance trading if they're living near the coastal areas. If they're living in the western part of India, they're engaged in wheat productivity. If they're living in the northern and eastern part of India, they're engaged in rice productivity. So everyone had their own part to play in the economy of the place. It was not dependent on the king at all. In fact, the king would be dependent on the economy that the people have contributed to in different parts of the country. Fine. So that is what we are trying to talk about. We are trying to decode, or we are trying to criticize Bernier by saying that this is not the exact reality that he has been talking about. Fine. Now, so as in case of land ownership, his picture is very much simplified, because obviously he could not really understand the land revenue system. Please try to understand, our land revenue system was not on land. The tax was not on the area of the land, but on the productivity of the land. Fine. And since he's talking about land ownership, and since he's talking about the towns, they're filled with, pestilential marishes, and it is contaminated with ill air. What about the different kinds of towns that you've studied in class 8? We've studied about manufacturing town, trading town, port town, sacred centers, pilgrimage town. What about these towns? These towns have also contributed to the economy of the subcontinent. Don't you think? Banaras is rich because it is a religious town. So is Vaishno Devi. So is Kedarnath, isn't it? Surat was a trading town because it was a port. So all of these towns owe their prosperity to the fact that they belong to a certain part of the economic transaction. Fine. So we are just trying to say that how oversimplified Bernier's version of reality is. Okay? Now, the existence of these towns are an indication that the merchants were rich. They were professional merchants. They organized themselves into guilds and shrenis. Fine. In Western India, they were known as Mahajans. Fine. They were known as, their chief was known as the Seth. Okay, in urban centers such as Ahmedabad, Mahajans were collectively known as Nagar Seth. Fine. And also there was a lot of availability of middle class population, right? What do you mean by that? What do you mean by middle class population? What we basically are trying to say here is that there were middle classes in the sense there was wakil, there were doctors, there were teachers, there were ved ji jinko hum kehte hain, doctors like. So there was a lot of middle class population as well. So it was not just the king and the landowners and the peasants. No, there were different stratification in the society as well, and there were existence of rich class of peasants. There were existence of rich class of merchants as well, and all of that we have already proven through our discussion. Okay, so with this we are going to end our discussion on Bernier. Day after I will be taking up some more foreign travelers, so maybe I will be taking up Pays and Barbosa because they have contributed a lot to Vijayanagar Empire. So we will be taking up on them, and maybe Abdul Razak as well. So we will be focusing on them, and wherever you have to be careful, I will definitely let you know. Okay, so please let me know if you have any doubts till here. I will definitely help you with it. Let me know guys if there's any difficulty, any doubt that you might be facing. Alright, so I will end today's discussion here. I really hope that you guys have understood everything very nicely. If you have any difficulty in understanding Bernier, you can always drop me a comment, or you can always let me know in the Telegram group if there's any difficulty that you're facing, and I will definitely take it up. I will definitely be explaining all of that to you, so need not worry about it at all. Okay, so I'll end today's discussion here. I really hope that you guys have enjoyed the session. I really hope that it was helpful to you all. Okay, so thank you so much for joining me here guys, and before you all leave, I would request everyone to join the Telegram group. The link has been given in the description box. The scan code has also been given, so you can join the group here. Why is it important for you to join? Because I'm so sorry. This is where you will get updates regarding the classes, fine? And whatever files that we upload, whatever notes we upload, we will be uploading the PDF version of that file in the Telegram group itself. Okay, so you will have access to notes also, which will make your preparation much more easier. So please do join the Telegram channel, and also before you all leave, I would request everyone to like the video, share it with your friends, also comment on it and let us know if there's anything you like or if there's anything you don't like. We will definitely be working on it. And also please do subscribe to the channel guys. We have hit 56 subscribers, and I'm really hoping to hit 100 subscribers by the end of this month. So please do subscribe to the channel. It would mean a lot to us, and press the bell notification so that you also get notified whenever we come online or whenever we post a new video. So thank you so much for watching the class. It was an absolute pleasure to have you all here, and we will definitely be continuing with our discussions day after. Thank you so much. Take care, guys. Bye bye.